I apologize in advance. I totally apologize in advance. There was just some technical issues with my printer and lots of things going on. So welcome. Good morning, friends, colleagues, and partners. I'm so excited to be here with you all as my first official event as I begin to spearhead this and all future grant cycles. So today will be more of an information sharing event rather than a Q&A. So I'll start by sharing a little bit about me and my background. We'll get into some logistics, we'll dive into the application, and then we'll go over some frequently asked questions. So I want to acknowledge George Ferrari, who is here with us this morning. He'll be chiming in when I'm stumped on one of your questions. And Janet Hansel, who most of you are very familiar with, who will be providing moral support. Who is Gloria? So who is this new face at the Community Foundation? I am the daughter of two Haitian immigrants who moved to Rockland County, New York. Yes, I'm from Rockland County. If you're not familiar with Rockland, it's right outside of Westchester County, right over the George Washington Bridge. My parents moved to Rockland County in search of a better life for their family, for myself and for my sisters. I grew up in Rockland County with three older sisters. In 1997, I graduated from high school and went off to the University of Maryland to pursue a medical career. That didn't really happen. Why? Because I failed out of school. I felt that friends are more important, and I really didn't have all my ducks in a row just yet. So fast forward to 2011, I found myself in Orlando, Florida, and in love. And then I got pregnant and decided to take school seriously. Right at that point, I started at a junior college. I went to Valencia College in Orlando, Florida, transferred to the University of Central Florida, and then graduated with honors at the top of my class, came to Cornell in 2015. Now, I was supposed to graduate from Cornell with a dual master's in public administration and health administration, but I suffered at the hands of institutional bias, structural racism, and human rights violations. So I ended up leaving with just my master's in public administration in 2019. So my love affair with this Ithaca community began while I was actually at Cornell. I've chartered organizations specifically to focus on the intersectionality of community service, leadership, and being human, with the goal of getting students off of the hill and into the communities. I've immersed myself in experiences related to child health, food insecurity, education, and community building. My most recent role, which many of you know, because I know a lot of familiar faces here, was the Community Engagement Director for the Ithaca LEAD program, working alongside Travis Brooks. He and I built this project literally from the ground up. So here we are now, and I started at the Community Foundation in June as the first Chief Inclusion and Community Engagement Officer. I'm excited to start this new role as I think about the possibilities and opportunities to instill trust, change, and resources into the community. Did you hear that? Trust, change, and resources. So my job is to ask those tough questions that everyone thinks about, but nobody is willing to ask. Have those crucial conversations that can be quite uncomfortable, and to champion the foundation's effort in creating safe and inclusive spaces. In addition to my diversity, equity, and inclusion work internally and externally, I've taken over grant making for the fall and spring grant cycles and the Let's Talk series, which is now my baby. So enough about me and why are we here? So the mission of the Community Foundation is very straightforward. We bring people and resources together to build a more equitable Tompkins County by inspiring diverse philanthropy, catalyzing collaborations, and championing inclusion and justice. Some key values that drive the work that we do here at the foundation are engagement, integrity, racial equity, relationships, and social justice. And the one thing that we value the most, which is right at the top, is being community driven. That is what drives our everyday work. Recently, the mission was adjusted to reflect the work that we're doing at the Community Foundation related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. We started with structural changes, moved to functional changes, then to organizational changes. We're incorporating DEIJ principles into our daily operations and have come up with a proactive, all-encompassing plan for engagement. Trust me, we are doing the work that's necessary. So this is a metric or an infographic that that we love to use here at the Community Foundation. It summarized our grants for over the past 2018. So the past 4 years. Social justice strategies here is divided into 4 categories. We have racial justice, rural services, advocacy, and resource equity. This is a great visual, and basically what I get from this visual is that we take very seriously our commitment to social justice.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. I'm sorry. We take very seriously our commitment to social justice, evidenced by all of this data. From 2018 to 2021, 79% of our grant money went towards social justice efforts, totaling $6.4 million. And 11% of that had a direct racial justice component. So there are 3 main cycles, and some of you even know this better than I do. There are 3 main cycles. There's the library grant cycle. There are 33 libraries in the Finger Lakes Library System, and that grant cycle is specifically for them. There's the Resilient Communities Spring Grant Cycle, which we had earlier this year, and of course, this fall grant cycle. Applications are now live as far as I know. Janet, can you confirm if the application is live yet?
They're live.
Okay, perfect. So the due date for the fall application is October 12th at 5 p.m. If you have needs outside of these cycles, if you have something that came up, emergent needs, there are ways for us to match your needs to donor advised funds or special interest funds. So again, if there is a need that you have and it doesn't fall within these cycles, please, please, please reach out to me. If you've applied for the fall 2021 grant, you may have received an email letting you know that the grant report is due by October 5th at 5 p.m. To access this report, you'll need to log into our portal, and the report will be right on your dashboard. The application's grant range is from $500 to all the way up to $10,000. This grant cycle has a range of, in a total amount of $150,000 to be granted this year. Unrestricted funds, yay! Organizations have appreciated our recent shift to granting unrestricted dollars. This is a trend that is best practice in our grant making field. No more program-specific money. This really allows you to be flexible and pivot when necessary. So unrestricted money, we're not going to ask you for anything program specific. So this is, as of, I believe it was last year, we started with unrestricted funds. Our review process. So applications are reviewed by community members, people who are your peers, your staff, your friends, our community. Some things that they'll be looking at, we do have a rubric that we go by. They'll be looking at how you as organizations are meeting your goals, how you are communicating, how are you learning, how are you pivoting, are you collaborating with other organizations? We're not just looking for, you send out referrals, but what are you doing to have a meaningful impact? How are you collaborating with organizations to really serve the community? One thing that I find truly amazing is that, and this was new to me when I first came into the organization, I had no idea, but us as foundation staff, we do not sit at a table and look through these applications and decide who gets what. We do not have anything to do with that. So we employ a shared powered model. We exercise, I'm sorry, not shared powered model, but shared decision model, where we invite peers, colleagues, your friends, community members to review these applications. So we're constantly changing the groups of people who review it. And we do this intentionally and purposefully. So this screenshot of these beautiful faces are from our review team members from 2021. And as you can see, they come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And like I said, we do this intentionally. We do something here at the Community Foundation called matchmaking. We do have discretionary dollars to grant, and we look for alignment based on your requests. So areas ranging from aging to animal welfare to food security or food insecurity. There are special interest funds where we can help fill gaps. So what we do is we share the summaries of your applications with our fund advisors, and then we just kind of hope for the best. Application questions. So one thing that we're going to do this year is we are going to post the application questions so that you can download them, think through your questions, and create one document. So that way when you, excuse me, when you open up your portal and then you open up your application, you'll have what you have saved already, and then you can literally copy and paste it onto your application. So this will save time, and it decreases because it always happens, it decreases the risk of losing all your information, and you don't have to worry about continuously saving your information. So that's something that we're doing new this year. So we'll ask basic information, your mission statement, financials. We have made a couple changes to the application, and I'm going to read to you our actual statement that we have included in the application. So this is our DEI statement. At the Community Foundation of Tompkins County, we believe that we could do more to promote and embrace DEI, as well as support you to advance DEI principles at your organization. We are asking you to share with us some basic demographics about your staff and board, such as race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, geography, and disability status. We believe your answers will help us understand whether the organizations we fund are diverse and inclusive relative to their context, if our grants help to decrease disparities and advance equity, or which demographics and groups need more support. Implicit biases are rooted in traditional grant-making practice, so we are being intentional as we collect more DEI-related grant-making data to address these issues. Some questions may be uncomfortable and hard to answer, but is essential if organizations are going to become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. We seek to do this in a way that feels constructive and makes clear that we are here to provide support where we can. We would never ask you to do something we ourselves wouldn't do. As an organization, we and the board are committed to incorporating the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion in our governance and daily operations. We are in the process of adding DEI provisions into our bylaws, which will hold us and our board of directors accountable and is a way of publicly committing to inclusive practices of cultural equity. Additionally, we have done our own internal demographic survey, and that information will be available to the public soon. Please know that our grant review and approval process does not begin and end with foundation staff. We do not approve or deny grants. Your employees, your colleagues, and your peers will review your application through an extensive and comprehensive grant review process. On the spectrum of community engagement, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. On the spectrum of community engagement, our grant review team process goes beyond just involving our community. We've enabled community members to participate in the planning and decision-making process as members of a grant review team. And then we also include a disclaimer. If English is not your native language and you would like to request a translated version of this application, please email me, and then it has my email address. So that is our DEI statement. So getting back to application questions, one question that is different from last year, it says, please tell us a story about a family individual your organization has helped within the last 6 months. Please be anonymous. So here is where we're asking you to really brag about your organization. Tell us something that is heartfelt, something that really will move an individual to want to fund your organization. So this story, along with your mission statement, this is what we'll be sending to our donor advisors. So you want to be clear, concise, brief, but you want it to be moving as well. Okay, so our diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial justice related questions involve your very basic questions. So gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, levels of ability. And in addition to those just really basic and generic questions, we ask if you capture demographic data of the population you serve. Some people do this, some people do not. Perhaps if you don't do it, maybe this is an opportunity for you to begin capturing this data. So we provide just an essay box. So we're looking for things like you provide, 50% of the population that you serve is minority, Black or brown, 25% Latinx. Just really do your best. It doesn't need to be perfect. We realize that all of this is new, just do your best. So other questions that we have go really into the nuts and bolts of what DEI is, and we're really looking to see what your organization is doing to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. A couple questions I'll just read, you guys can read yourselves, but I'll read 2 of the questions. Does your organization have an approach to creating a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workspace. So we're interested to know if you're creating, you know, an environment for your staff people that is workable. Another question, does this grant request decrease disparities and or advance equitable outcomes for historically marginalized or disinvested racial, cultural, or socioeconomic groups? If yes, please explain. So again, we're just kind of going into the nuts and bolts and really taking a deeper dive into what your organization is doing to support DEI in our community. So here's where I am going to take you through. Actually, I probably won't do that because of the technical issues that I was having earlier, and I'm afraid that I might lose you all. But I was going to take you through an online application walkthrough. If you're a new organization who is applying, there's a way to create a profile. If you're an existing organization that have applied with us before, you'll just go right into your profile and then you'll click on the new fall grant cycle. For technical questions, Madeline Rosas is your person. She can be reached at admin@cftompkins.org. So we'll just move along. So this concludes the presentation portion of it. And then we will go right into our questions. I'm going to read some frequently asked questions and answer them. Hold on, let me pull this up. Okay. So our first question, if I applied and was fully funded in the spring, am I eligible to apply in the fall? The answer is yes. We invite everyone to apply for funding, but our funding decisions will prioritize those who did not get full funding in the spring. Question 2, if my program is part of a parent organization that houses several programs, can I apply separately, or does our parent organization have to apply for us? So because of the intense process involved with our grant making, organizations are limited to 2 applications, up to $10,000 total. So you can split it however you want to split it. One program can do $7,500. The other program can do $2,500. One can do $6,000. The other can do $4,000, and so forth, just so long as it doesn't go over the $10,000. Next question. I have a fiscal sponsor who sponsors many programs. Will that affect my application? No, your application will in no way be affected by this, and we're familiar with fiscal sponsors and we have a way to work around these things. How many times can a fiscal sponsor be used? There's no limit to how many times a fiscal sponsor can be used. Like I said, we're very familiar with who our fiscal sponsors are, so you don't have to worry about that. Next question, can I apply if I haven't filled out the report yet? Our answer is previously due reports must be completed for eligibility into this grant cycle. So you cannot apply if we have not received your report just yet. Next question. I can't log in or my password is not working. So that's a technical question. So like I said before, all technical questions are to be routed to Madeline Rosas at admin@cftompkins.org. So those are all of the frequently asked questions that I have. So we will open it up. We will
Gloria, you have some
open.
additional, you have a couple more questions in the chat. Someone has
Oh.
3 different questions in the latest chat.
Okay, let's see. Mm. Okay, question. Do you have to be a formal organization? Can you be an individual or a collective? So if you're an individual or if you are even a for-profit organization, as long as you have what we're calling a fiscal sponsor, you are allowed to apply. So the fiscal sponsor has to be a nonprofit 501c3 organization in order for you to apply. And basically they are taking on the liability and they are the ones who will be filling out the application as well as doing the reports. George, can you tell me if I'm forgetting anything?
Sure, a couple of things. It's important to have a formal agreement with your fiscal sponsor. Don't call someone a fiscal sponsor if they don't know you're using them as a fiscal sponsor. That's happened a couple of times. That's not okay. And technically, there are 4 types of organizations to whom we can make a grant. We never make a grant to an individual. And we can make a grant to a 501c3 not-for-profit. Not all not-for-profits are 501c3s. Some are membership organizations like Rotary or the Chamber. Those are C4s, but they are not eligible to receive a grant. We can also grant to school districts, public school districts, to municipalities, City of Ithaca, Town of Dryden, etc. And to religious organizations. And there was a question in the chat about religious organizations. Those organizations are eligible to receive a grant as long as the purpose or program of the grant is not sectarian or evangelizing. I can never say that word right. If it's for a food pantry that anyone at a local temple, church, mosque, etc., can access, that's great. If it's for a group Sunday school class for only members of the congregation, that's not eligible. So that's the distinction there.
Perfect. Thanks, George.
Sure.
All right, Cheryl has a question. Cheryl says, welcome. Thank you, Cheryl. If an organization received funds in the spring, can an organization apply in the fall 2022 cycle? So I went over this question with Janet in full because I needed to understand this for myself as well. But from what I understand, if you were given a 100%, if you were granted fully in the spring at $10,000, we give those organizations who were not fully funded how should I put this, George? I don't want to say this the wrong way
Sure,
first time.
it's a slight preference. It's a slight
Okay.
preference, you know. And so organizations that were fully funded in the spring cycle are eligible to apply, but they might be at a lower preference level than an organization that applies in the fall that didn't either receive full funding in the spring or did not receive any money in the spring or didn't apply in the spring. So there's a little bit of a preference tilt there. So
Okay.
that's and you did answer that before it wound up again.
I did, but I just didn't like you. I don't like using the word preference.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good way to describe it. A couple other questions there. Where will this recording be located for the future reference? It'll be on the Grant Opportunities page where you find the access to Community Force, the application software. And we can also perhaps follow up with an email or such, but we'll make it available to folks widely. Can religious organizations apply? We answered that. How much can we apply for the first time application? Gloria, I think you answered that too as well, which a total of up to 10,000. Is that correct for this cycle? Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Great. And then someone asked the question, I want to make sure they understand this. You must receive the fall 21 report before you submit the fall 22 cycle. Yes. And that report, Gloria had a date for that earlier in the PowerPoint. I think it was October
5th.
October 5th, which is a full week ahead of the October 12th deadline. And those are deadlines. You can certainly, both the report and now the application are live. You can do that ahead of time.
And we are also flexible. So if there's something that came up, if your organization is going through either a change or programs or events, please reach out to me. It's we're flexible. So if you do need additional time, we can give you additional time to get
Mhm.
the reports in.
The other thing I might mention is that there's a lot of grant application deadlines and many other entities out there in the fall cycle. And I will put in the chat a link to a page we try to keep up to date, which looks at other funding opportunities for local funders. And there's also the opportunity, a unique, extraordinary opportunity this year for the county's recovery fund program to make application to that ARPA pot of money. There'll be a Human Service Coalition Forum meeting next Wednesday morning, a week from today. You can find information about that as well in the chat. I'll put that in there to learn more about that process. So that's an extraordinary opportunity that the county is managing.
Perfect. All right, it looks like we got a couple more questions. Is the assumption that a report is what you did with the last grant award? Yes. So if you applied for in the fall of 2021 and you received the grant from us, you will have gotten an email from us letting you know details of where to find the report, when the report is due, and where to find additional information. So yes, the answer is yes. What did you do with the money that you got last year? Another question. If two organizations are collaborating on the same project, are they each eligible to apply? Ooh, that's a new one for me. George, I'm going to give this question to you.
I think that our grant making process is a discovery process. So we like to learn what's happening out there. You can certainly both apply eligibly and make it clear which portion of the project your organization is doing and which portion the other entity is doing.
Perfect. Thanks, George. Is reporting of the spring grant cycle due before the fall grant cycle can be applied to?
Yeah, we answered that already.
Okay, got it. All right, are there any additional questions? Is there an average grant size per cycle or organization? Is there a max cap awarded per organization? So the grant size is between $500 to $10,000. So $10,000 is our absolute cap per organization. Is there an average grant size? No, there's not an average grant size. Every organization is different. Some are asking for small, small program based, and then others are looking for big operational support. So it really varies on the individual organization. George, did you want to add something to that?
No. That's good.
Okay. Any advice for those who are new to applying? Let's see. What applications are most likely to be funded and why? Also, I'm so happy to see you at the Community Foundation. My family's also from Haiti. Yes. So I feel really welcome in this space. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. General advice, new to applying, ask questions. One thing that, like I said, we're doing this year, we have actually, or we're going to put up the questions ahead of time. So you have all the questions in front of you. Take it to your board, take it to your executive director, take it to your team, work on it together, do a Google Doc, do what you need to do. Use your resources. It doesn't just need to be you doing this. So do what you need to do there at that front. And then if you have any questions, we are here to support you. There's myself, there's George, there's Madeline for technical support. It's not something that we are expecting you to perfect and do it on your own. We are happy to support you in any way that we can. So reach out to us if you need to. Never feel like there is a dumb question or a stupid question. There are no dumb questions with us. So that's really the advice that I have for you.
I would also offer, if I could, have someone who doesn't know much about your work read your application before you send it to us, right? In my experience as a grant seeker, that's always my mother, who doesn't quite understand what I do here anyway. But it's always good to have someone kind of read and say, wait, that didn't make sense, or you use this acronym over here and you didn't explain what it was, and there's a leap you took here and I didn't make that leap with you. You know, that's really kind of and think about how we're most interested at co-discovering with you how you change the world. Talk about your impact, your results, your outcomes, not your outputs as much, not as the things you're doing to get there, but what is your mission? How do you achieve your mission? How do you know that you've achieved your mission?
Yeah.
And how do you work with others to do that? I mean, that's kind of the underlying narrative of a grant application.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. And every grant we make doesn't turn out the way we expect it to, or the way that you expect it to. That's okay. If it did, that meant we were not taking enough risks as a funder. So we want to learn things that you expect to learn, and surprises, pro and con, that happen in your process. So that's talking a little bit more about your report than about your application.
Okay, thanks, George. What applications are most likely to be funded and why? So I'm going to take a crack at this, George. And I'm going to say there is no good answer to this. Most likely to be funded. I don't know if it would be put that way. But we're just, like I said, we have donor advised funds. We have special interest areas where we can align what your organization, your mission and your values, what you value, we can align it that way. And then we do have our regular grant cycle funds. And you couldn't imagine some of the things that get funded that you would think doesn't get funded, but gets funded, and then vice versa. So there's no good answer for that. George, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think the things that tend to get funded are not about issue or topic. It's about our ability to understand from your communications with us that you are working on the mission of your organization in a collaborative way that advances social justice in our community to improve outcomes for folks that need that improvement. And that can be happening with arts, it can be happening in the environment, it can be happening in libraries, it can be happening in schools, it can be happening in senior citizen centers. You know, we're sort of agnostic according to the issue. It's more about the process and the methodology and your strategic thinking about what you're doing. If you're able to express that to us, that really is most compelling. Now, there are individual donor advisors, Gloria, as you exactly said, that will have some particular topics or issues that are near and dear to them. And that is part of what we do on the inside of the Community Foundation, working with those individual donor advisors. I will tell you, we have one field of interest fund that has substantial assets in it that we're looking for applications that help to engage residents in managing decision-making and planning issues that affect the day-to-day life. So some of you know we have something called the Susan Christofferson Community Planning Fund. There is an opportunity there to not chase dollars, not do mission drift, not pretzel your organization to something you're not. Because we can tell that when we read those applications, and those don't tend to get funded. But there's an opportunity here, and I'll just put from our webpage the description of that particular fund. There's an opportunity there that we haven't seen as many applications in this category as we have some resources for. Now, don't hear that as George said that if we make this application, it's definitely going to be funded because we have a bottomless pit of money in this fund. Don't hear it that way. I am letting you know there's an opportunity here. It's limited, defined, and this is a chance for you to think about how you do. If it fits for you, put it in your application. If it doesn't fit for you, do not put it in your application.
Thanks, George. Remember, George said, if you put, I'm kidding.
You're going to get me in trouble, aren't you, Gloria?
Okay, let's see. And where are we? Ryan. Thanks, Ryan, for the welcome. In previous fall cycles, the Community Foundation has offered a multi-year programmatic funding opportunity. I believe the last round time that funding opportunity was offered was fall 2019. Is this something that we intend to offer in a future cycle in addition to this unrestricted support? That's a George question. This really hasn't come up in any of my training. So George, take it
Sure.
away.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something we've done 2 times in the past, and you're correct, I think, with that being the last time, Ryan. This cycle, that's not the case, and we're looking at what next year will look like. So we don't know. We understand that that was a valuable strategy that we used, and lots of people liked it. So it's a part of best grant making practices, and something we haven't formed for this particular cycle, but it's something we haven't said we're never going to do again. So stay tuned. We understand that it's a valuable way to do grant making, but it's not part of this cycle.
Thanks, George. And again, since you know I am an avid learner, I would like to know in 2019, when organizations applied for this, does that mean that they didn't need to reapply the following year? So they had guaranteed funds for 2 years?
It was contingent upon that report, right? We talked about reports already today.
Oh,
We wanted to
gotcha.
understand halfway through a 2-year cycle where you're at.
Perfect. Okay, good to know. Next question is from Jan. Hi, Jan, from the Women's Opportunity Center. If organizations received an award from a donor-directed fund managed by us, is that considered a community foundation grant? In a word, I'm gonna say yes. If it came from us and we are, the donor advised fund is with us at the Community Foundation, the answer is yes. George, would you like to add anything?
Yes, money comes out of donor advised funds in at least 2 ways. Sometimes a donor advisor can initiate that on their own, not in response to an application. It might be a donor advisor with whom you have a relationship that you know they have a donor advised fund here, or you may not know they have a donor advised fund here. But also, as Gloria, as you mentioned, part of what we do is this sort of philanthropic consulting and matchmaking. Sometimes a donor advisor will respond to an application, and the revenue or the dollars for that grant are coming out of a donor advised fund, sometimes bundled with other funds, and we hybridize grants. So anytime we make a grant with an application, those grants need to have a report, whether they come from a donor advised fund or unrestricted assets. If they come directly from a donor advised funds, those grants typically are certainly grants of the Community Foundation, but typically don't require a grant report unless, exception, the donor advisor is wanting that report.
Perfect. Thanks, George. I think that's it. We have George put the Susan Christopherson Community Planning Fund award there, information for you. Any other questions, anything burning in your soul that you want to get off your chest? Anything else? All right, we'll wait about 30 seconds. So we want to remind you that we don't expect applications to be perfect. Don't stress over it. I'm really a believer in trying to do your best not to stress over things. This shouldn't be a stressful process. And we intend it to be that way. Like I said, we are here to help and support you however we can. We know that technical difficulties is a pain, just like I had technical difficulties earlier today at about 10:55, right before this this started. So technical support is Madeline Rosas. I will put her email in the chat if it's not already. George, did you put it in here already?
I did put it in there. We could put it in again. And why don't you put yours in as well? Because you are happy to receive emails about the content of the reports, not the technical aspect. That's how we kind of
Yes.
split that up.
Yep, I will add my email right now. Everyone. Okay. So there's my email address, there's Madeline's email address. Again, we thank you so much for being on this call. You are all beautiful and wonderful people.
Gloria,
These-
one other quick question is there.
Yes,
If an
another quick
organization serves multiple counties across the state, i.e. provides services to youth from local Tompkins County community as well as many others, is that taken into account when making a decision?
If an organization serves multiple counties across the state.
So I can answer that. As long as you're
Oh.
providing some benefit to
To,
folks who live in, work in, or, go to school in or recreate in Tompkins County, then you are an eligible applicant to this process.
yes, any of the municipalities within Tompkins County, just make sure that you explicitly say that in your application. Okay, I think that is it. We have about 7 minutes before 12, so it looks like we're gonna end early, but we appreciate you all for getting on. Like I said, you are all beautiful people, beautiful humans. We thank you so much for the work that you do. The Community Foundation sees you and we see the work that you do. We appreciate you. Your people, the population that you serve appreciates you. The community appreciates you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being on this call. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are here for you. All
Thank
right,
you,
let
Gloria.
the grant making begin.
Great job, Gloria.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much again. Take care.